Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig Sports. And this is the MLB DFS Core Pick video, Core Pick live stream for today, August 3rd. As always, we are going to be getting into it today. If you're joining me for the very first time, this is how this video will be structured. Going over a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they turned out, talking about the injuries in play thinking about basketball here for a second. Talking about the weather report for today, so I do apologize for that for the games on the main slate. I believe 6-game main slate in total, so I won't be doing a traditional core pick video today. We'll be talking a little bit more in the slate in totality, so kind of bear with me there. On these smaller slates, 6 games and under, I try to do that just in general. If you guys like that structure, be sure to let me know. If you don't like it and you want to see more of a traditional core pick video, be sure to let me know down in the comments as well. We'll take that input into future videos. So with that being said, I'm going to go over to the YouTube community tab and talk about the bottom half of my cheat sheet, the top GPP stacks first, and then we'll look position by position at each position, the players that are in there, and kind of talk about the ones that I'll be targeting just in general today. So that's kind of the game plan for today. Hopefully you guys all enjoy it, and definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in, whether you're watching live or on replay. But with that being said, we're going to get over to those core picks from yesterday. So not the greatest day yesterday. We ended up on Dylan Cease at $9,300 a pitcher for a core pick. His two most recent starts were 40 points, or at least 40 points, I should say, versus the Texas Rangers. And he missed pretty big yesterday. He had negative 13 points, 1 2/3 innings pitched, 7 hits, 7 earned runs, 1 strikeout, and 3 walks. Like I said, a lot of pitchers that were in play, 5, 6 that I would be getting exposure to yesterday. I was trying to take a chance on ownership with Dylan Cease yesterday. Unfortunately, did not ultimately end up paying off. Then at first base, we had Ryan Mountcastle. He was $3,000. He got to 18 points yesterday. So he was a hit yesterday. He was the 4th overall first baseman on yesterday's slate. Did like him in that Baltimore stack yesterday. Unfortunately, the two other ends of our Baltimore stack with Gunnar Henderson and Anthony Santander. Gunnar Henderson was third base, shortstop eligible. Got to 0 points. He was 0 for 4 in a miss at $3,500. And then Anthony Santander, $3,200, got to 0 points, and he was 0 for 4 as well. So kind of got to the wrong end of the Baltimore stack yesterday besides Ryan Mountcastle. And then the last player that was in our core yesterday was Nico Horner at $3,300. Got to 9.4 points. I did give him a hit. He ended up being the 4th overall second baseman on yesterday's slate, and you could obviously play him at second base or shortstop. So not the greatest day yesterday. We're looking to bounce back in a big way. If you get to a couple different pitching options, if you get to a different exposure in that Baltimore stack, maybe it was a little bit better day for you. Pretty high scoring day, though, once again yesterday. So with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing this. We'll get over to RotoWire and take a look at that weather report for today overall. And once again, as we're going through this, as I'm loading these pages up, if you guys have any questions whatsoever, feel free to drop them in the live chat. If you're watching on replay, feel free to leave them down in the comments, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. So we are going to scroll down to the main slate, which does start at 7:15 Eastern time. So we have Milwaukee and Pittsburgh's in the dome, so no concern there. The New York Yankees and the Houston Astros, 11% chance of rain out in New York, so not too big an issue at this point in time. St. Louis does have a 17% chance of rain, so small chances here so far. As we move down to Chicago Cubs and the Cincinnati Reds, in Chicago, 0% chance. Los Angeles, no chance once again for the Angels and Mariners. And then for the Dodgers, no chance too, because that game's essentially really close to each other. So nothing there majorly weather-wise at this point in time. If anything does majorly change throughout the day, we'll try to leave it down there in the comments as well as the starting lineups as they do come out throughout the day. But with that being said, we're going to get off this screen. We'll get over to the YouTube community tab to start. Talk about the top GPP teams to stack for today overall. And then we'll get over to FanDuel and kind of look at each position by position, kind of talking about the guys, whether or not I play them or not today. Just kind of depends on how I'm feeling about those certain players today, some of their past history as well. And if you're looking for more in-depth notes in terms of past history, in terms of hitter versus pitcher, whether or not I consider a pitcher in play, a risky player and avoid, check out the Patreon at patreon.com/Coach Craig Sports. Small monthly donation over there. Monday through Friday, you get some additional notes to help you build out your MLB DFS lineups overall. So we are going to start. Let me get this brought up a little bit better here. Do apologize for that. So the top GPP teams that I do have to stack for today overall are going to be the Chicago Cubs going against Luke Weaver of the Cincinnati Reds. Cubs have hit him pretty decent in the past before. Not like a long list of history there. Cody Bellinger is going to be one of the guys that does have really good history versus him, so you can play an outfielder for space. And then we get Houston Astros going against Clark Schmidt of the Yankees. It's been a little bit up and down season for Clark Schmidt. This Astros team really doesn't have history versus him. I believe it's like Jose Abreu and maybe one other player that even have at bats against him at this point in time. So do like get into that as Astros today, whether it's a Yordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, or somebody else in that lineup. And then we get over to the Dodgers. They're going against JP Sears. Should be a favorable matchup once again, although Sears, you could argue, has been the best pitcher so far this season for Oakland. So maybe not quite as enticing as some of the other matchups that they've had so far in this series. And then last but not least, I have the Minnesota Can I talk right now? The Minnesota Twins going against Matthew Liberatore, who really doesn't have history versus them as well. So a lot out there that's unknown in terms of this slate overall. So we're going to have to dig a little bit deeper today, try to figure out who we want to play. But that's kind of the top GPP teams that stack for today overall. But with that being said, we're going to get off this page. We'll get over to FanDuel and take that position by position breakdown look. So let me get that up here real quickly. I had to log into FanDuel as I was trying to load the stream today. So we're just going to click on a contest and go from there. Like I said, as opposed to a traditional core pick video, 5 game or 6 games today. So 6 games or less. I'm going to look a little bit more at the slate in totality. If you guys like that, be sure to let me know. If you do not like that and you want to see more of a traditional core pick video, be sure to let me know as well. But you get some of my favorite plays just in general, my thoughts on the slate. So Shohei Ohtani is definitely in play. He's had some pretty strong success for Seattle in the past. Jared Kelenick's a guy that has 2 home runs versus him, but he's on the injured list at this point in time, so not too worried there. Mitch Keller's had some pretty good success against the Brewers too, so I do like him as well. So both guys on the high end looking pretty good so far. Sonny Gray, really hit or miss history versus the Cardinals. Obviously, he hasn't had to start versus them this season. Didn't have a start versus them last year, so that is a little bit more distant history. You still could take a chance on him today. Christian Javier had one really strong start versus the Yankees last year, and then one kind of pedestrian start. He's got decent history versus these Yankees hitters, although it's a very limited sample size. A guy that we can consider once again. He's kind of been up and down as of late, though. And then Julio Urias. Probably going to be pretty popular today at $8,800. I do have him as my paydown option. He is going against Oakland, so it's a favorable matchup. Urias is dealing with like a cracked fingernail. That's why he didn't ultimately end up starting on, I believe it was Tuesday. He has not been the greatest so far this year. I battled a couple injuries here and there as well. So we'll see what that upside looks like today. Maybe a guy that is going to be over-owned, but a guy that I still think warrants some consideration. Jameson Taillon's pitching a little bit better as of late, but I have the Reds kind of as my 5th team to stack today, so not super, super high on him. If you want to go super contrarian today, JP Sears could make some sense against the Dodgers. He's been a respectable pitcher this year. Brian Wu is another guy on the low end that you could look at $7,900. Could have some potential strikeout outside there versus the Angels. And if he can kind of control those bats, could be a favorable start for him today. And then as we get down here, not really too interested in Adrian Hauser, Matthew Liberatore, or Luke Weaver. If you're going to make a case for one of them, it's probably going to be Liberatore getting some strikeouts against the Twins if his stuff's on top of it today. But outside of that, like one start at the beginning of the year or his first start of the year versus the Brewers, we really haven't seen that too much. Clark Smith's kind of there too as well. Maybe as a hit or miss guy, but probably not getting to too much of him today though. So that's kind of pitchers in a nutshell. If you guys have any more specific pitcher-related questions, be sure to let me know as well. Moving over to first base and catcher. So I think Freddie Freeman at the top makes a lot of sense. He's been hitting the ball really well. Like I said, Cody Bellinger has pretty good history versus Luke Weaver. So if you want to play him at first base or outfield, makes a ton of sense to play him today. Paul Goldschmidt's been doing pretty well as of late. Not that great of history there, though, versus Sonny Gray. Will Smith, if you're building out a Dodger stack, makes some sense to throw him in there. Spencer Steer's been doing pretty well, so I do like that matchup versus Jameson Taillon. Probably not getting to Carlos Santana. CJ Cron, that's a hard one at $3,200 against a right-handed pitcher. Probably not getting there too often. Cal Raleigh, a little bit too expensive at this point in time. He could ultimately end up paying off if you really want to go like a contrarian Seattle stack. But against Ohtani, not really getting there myself personally. I do like Joey Votto against Jameson Taillon in this matchup. Votto's been starting to hit the ball a little bit more as of late. Let's see what else we got here. Maybe, William Contreras, if you want to throw him in a Brewers stack. DJ LeMahieu, if you're building on a Yankee stack, makes some sense. Or just a guy that has multi-positional versatility. He does have a home run versus Christian Javier last year, so that is something to note at the very least. Wilson Contreras, if you're building out of Cardinal snacks, makes a little bit of sense. Probably not getting too much Henry Davis. Probably not getting Jose Abreu today. You could throw him in some of the Houston stacks if you really wanted to. Same thing with Jake Bowers if you're building out some Yankee stacks. Probably not getting to Ty France. Shane Langoliers probably not getting to unless you're getting super contrarian. Not too much else here. I'll take some shots on Tyler Stevenson, some here and there. Yan Gomes actually does have really good history versus Luke Weaver. 2 for 2 with a home run, I do believe. So that is something that we could look for if he ends up starting at catcher today for the Cubs. Anthony Rizzo is at least cheap at this point in time, but hasn't done much as of late. Same thing could be said about Mark Canha. Not really too much else down here as we keep moving down. So if you really want to take a shot on some of these other cheaper guys, go ahead and do it. But for the most part, first base, mainly looking at Freddie Freeman, Joey Votto, Spencer Steer, and like Yan Gomes there. So those would be kind of the 4 or 5 that I get to for the most part today in that group. Then we get over to second base. So Mookie Betts is going to be in play at all 3 of his positions. Just figure out which spot you'd like to play him best at. And then Christopher Morel, not really getting there at $4,100. He does have that high end upside, but once again, I like Jose Altuve, but $4,000 is a lot, so I will admit that. Matt McLean's been pretty solid so far this year, so $3,900 shortstop or second base. Definitely can play him once again, especially if you're building out a red stack. And then we're going to keep moving down. Not really getting Nolan Gorman today. There is upside there, but I'm not really getting to him at $3,500. Nico Horner still very much in play at second base and shortstop and doing really well as of late. Jorge Polanco is more of a contrarian play if you get there. Edward Julian, they don't have him listed as starting at this point in time. Nick Senzel, if he starts, he's got multi-positional versatility, fits in some red stacks. Luis Rengifo, I threw in there because I don't mind that matchup versus Brand Wu. I think it could be a decent one for him if he gets leadoff today. Could be pretty attractive there. So he's a guy that does have that multi-positional versatility. Once again, not really getting to Tony Kemp in the lefty on lefty matchup today. Probably doesn't even hit leadoff. Nick Gonzalez really slowed off as of late. We'll see if he's in the starting lineup or not. Tommy Edman actually does have really good history versus Sonny Gray. I think it was 7 for 15 with a home run. So definitely somebody that's pretty enticing. And now he is eligible at 3 positions with shortstop, second base, and outfield. Most of the year, he's just been shortstop only. If you really want to go against Christian Javier, Grayber Torres makes a little bit of sense. Not too much else down here. Kevin Newman starts and hits towards the top of the lineup for the Reds. Is a cheap guy to throw in there for multi-positional versatility. You could say the same thing about Kyle Farmer. Don't mind that matchup completely versus Matthew Liberatore. The upside is a little bit limited though at that, but he is cheap. He's got multi-positional versatility. If Owen Miller starts, same type of thing, multi-positional versatility, but it's a tougher matchup with Mitch Keller. And then you get down to Kiki Hernandez, who, multi-positional versatility. Once again, if he ultimately ends up starting, and it's against left-handed pitching, which is actually usually pretty favorable for him. Jordan Diaz, if you're looking for a real punt play down here, does make a little bit of sense as well. Moving over to third base, though, like I say, a lot of times on these smaller slates too, starting lineups do matter because we're going to get a couple of value players on today's start. Guy that ends up starting that's relatively cheap price tag, or somebody that we just didn't expect to start that's hitting towards the top of the lineup. Then third base, I'm not really too high on the top end of here. Nolan Arenado does have 2 home runs. There's Sonny Gray, so I did post him as my top or my high-end pay-up option there. If you want to play Ellie De La Cruz in a red stack, makes a lot of sense with the upside that he does present. I do like Alex Bregman in this matchup against Clark Schmidt. Could have some pretty good upside, pretty strong upside there, $3,200. Eugenio Suarez is 3 for 8 in his career versus Shohei Ohtani. Not something I really want to bet on at $3,000, but if you really want to build out a contrarian Seattle stack, you could do it. Heimer Candelario, $2,900, looks like a pretty attractive play. 1 for 3 with 1 home run versus Luke Weaver in his career. Christian Encarnacion Strand, if you're building out that red stack, you could obviously throw him in there against Jameson Taillon. There's going to be some pretty strong upside there. Like I said, Nick Senzel, if he ends up starting. Chris Taylor, another multi-eligibility guy. At least there's a lot of multi-eligibility guys on this slate that could be, useful price points. Him, Willie Castro's down here. Key Brian Hayes, I haven't looked at him in a while, if I'm being honest, but, it is a decent price tag. Maybe the Pirates end up being a sneaky team to snack, but hasn't really done too much as of late. If you really want to throw him out there, makes a little bit of sense, though. Not really getting to Mike Moustakas at this point in time, although it is righty on lefty matchup, so it could be favorable for him. Let's see what else we got down here. If Eduardo Escobar ends up starting, he's cheap. He's multi-positional versatility. I I think it's kind of left at 3 for 12 with a home run versus Christian Javier. So he could be pretty interesting, especially if he ends up starting once again. And then, not too much else down here for the third base today. We're looking at shortstop real quick, then outfield, and then try to get out of here, trying to keep this video as short and sweet as possible. But as always, if you guys have any questions whatsoever, feel free to drop them in the chat or down in the comments if you're watching on replay. We already talked about Mookie Betts. It's going to be a pretty strong play, pretty popular play, especially with his versatility. We talked about Matt McLean and Ellie De La Cruz and Nico Horner. So not too much else there to say. If you want to play Dansby Swanson, makes some sense. Willie Adames is 5 for 14 with one home run versus Mitch Keller, but Willie Adames is that super streaky player. He's either going to have a big game or probably go 0 for 4. So that's kind of on you at that point in time. Carlos Correa, I don't really mind in twin stacks, especially if he's towards the top of the lineup once again. JP Crawford, 5 for 18, I believe it was, or 6 for 19. Can't remember which off the top of my head versus Shohei Ohtani, but he does have a home run versus him too, I believe. So, if you're building out that contrarian Seattle stack, him and Eugenio Suarez might make a little bit of sense, but probably not getting there myself personally. Zach Nieto, we're not really getting to at $2,900. Ahmed Rosario, if you want to play him at $2,900, does make some sense, especially in some of those Dodgers stacks, as long as he ends up starting today. And then we're just going to keep moving down. We talked a lot about these guys already just because there's a lot of multi-positional versatility guys. Jeremy Pena at $2,600 makes some sense. Same thing with Volpe if you're building out a Yankees stack. So that's kind of where we're at. Kike Hernandez obviously down there for those Dodgers stacks once again, getting over to outfield at this point in time. So we talked a lot about Mookie Betts. Jordan Alvarez makes sense in that Astros stack. Aaron Judge, if you really want to play him as a one-off, or if you get a Yankee stack out there, obviously does have the upside that Aaron Judge can have on any given slate. Not really getting to Christopher Morel. Bellinger, obviously we talked quite a bit about already. Do like him quite a bit. Julio Rodriguez, probably not getting to against Ohtani, and not really getting to Christian Yelich. It looks like JD Martinez is a little bit banged up at this point in time, so we're probably not playing him in our Dodgers stacks unless he ends up starting, but still could get pinch ran for at any point in time. Kyle Tucker makes a lot of sense. Lars Nootbaar starting to turn it around a little bit as of late, so if you really want to take that chance against Sonny Gray, if he hits leadoff, there is opportunities to be had there. Jake Fraley probably not getting too much. You can throw him in some red stacks here and there if you want to. Same thing with Chas McCormick in Houston stacks. Spencer Steer I like quite a bit. Brian Reynolds was in the core play, does have some pretty decent history in the past versus Adrian Hauser. And then injured guys, so we're not talking too much about them. Ian Happ, if you want to throw him in your Cub stack, makes a little bit of sense there. I like TJ Friedel once again. Yesterday I did have him in my core, but they sat him for that lefty on lefty matchup. So do like him today against Jameson Taillon. Mike Tauchman has been doing pretty well for the Cubs. If he hits leadoff, is going to be a pretty interesting option there. Let's see what else we got here. Jack Sawinski will make some sense. He's 1 for 1 versus Hauser with a home run, so that is some pretty strong upside, although he's been slumping pretty good as of late. Giancarlo Stanton, if you're building out that Yankee stack and you want to throw him in there, it does make a little bit of sense. Not too much else here that I'm really looking at. Brent Rooker, if you're going contrarian stack against Julio Urias today, makes a little bit of sense there in some of your GPPs. McCutchen, you could always play against, Milwaukee if you're playing the Pittsburgh stack at $2,900. Not bad value there. Not really interested in Max Kepler and lefty on lefty. Harrison Bader, if he ends up starting for the Yankees, you could roll him out there at $2,900. Same thing with James Outman. Seiya Suzuki at $2,800. I think a pretty interesting option for that Cubs team. So, if I'm stacking the Cubs today, maybe I'm stacking Seiya Suzuki, Heimer Candelario, Cody Bellinger, and then probably like Nico Horner or Dansby Swanson. Kind of mix 4 of those 5 into your lineups if you're building out those Cubs stacks. And then we're just going to keep moving down. And I should say the Cubs have scored a lot of runs as of late, too. So that is something to note. Jake Bauers only in Yankee stacks if he ends up starting. Rengifo, we already talked about. Hunter Renfroe at $2,800 is kind of appealing. He ultimately end up being in my cheat sheet. Against Brian Rue, I don't like the righty-on-righty matchup, but there is upside to be had there. He's a pretty cheap price tag overall. Let's see what else we got here. Mark Cannon, we talked about already. Not too much else down here. Joey Gallo, probably not playing in the lefty-on-lefty matchup. Joey Weimer, maybe at $2,600. Tougher matchup against Mitch Keller, though. Then we got Tyler O'Neill, who is 3 for 10 with 1 home run in his career versus Sonny Gray. So if you're building out that Cardinals stack, if you want to play him as a one-of, he's a really cheap price tag. So I will put that out there. Not too much else down here, though. We got the Kiki Hernandez of the world. We got guys like that. And then some of these younger players that are just cheap at this point in time, but going against Shohei Ohtani there. Alec Burleson did hit a home run yesterday if you want to take your shots on him doing it back-to-back days. But that's pretty much the overview for today's slate. Hopefully you guys all found this video pretty useful just in general. I do apologize, rambled a little bit here and there too much. I had a couple of brain farts, but hopefully you guys all found it pretty informative. If you have any additional questions whatsoever related to MLB DFS, be sure to let me know down in the comments. Also, be sure to let me know your favorite play on today's slate. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in, whether you're watching live or on replay. We'll list any potential weather updates as the day moves along. We'll list all these starting lineups as well. But with that being said, that's pretty much what I do have at this point in time. Once again, definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. If it's your very first time checking it out or you have yet to do so, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now it is MLB DFS Monday through Friday. Got the CFL DFS video up that went up yesterday, so definitely be sure to check that out. Be sure to check out the Patreon at patreon.com/CoachCraigSport for both sports, helping you out there if that's something you're interested in. And then also be sure to check out Parlay Play, Prize Picks, and BetUS for some free first-time deposit bonuses. I should say completely free because you're still making a deposit, but at the same time, it's going to help you guys out a little bit, helps out this channel a little bit at the same time as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have at this point in time. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in, whether you're watching live or on replay. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS tonight.